Hi guys, I hope you are enjoying summer. If it is summer, whatever you are in the globe, it is summer in Europe now and I live in London. So the weather got extremely warm in the last few weeks and I decided to address something that is being really important for me in my weather and maybe it's affecting you as well. Let's talk about heating and how can heat waves stress your orchids, why this happens, what are the signs that you should look for, and what you should do if your plants have been stressed by heat. If that's something that you are interested to know or learn a little bit more, please stay here, hang with me, and let's start this video. I have this plant here with me that unfortunately cannot see the flowers very well, but I will give you some close-ups. That's my Phalaenopsis equestris. That's the variety that has the pyloric flowers. I'm sorry about the background noise. As I said, it's summer, it's pretty hot, so the windows have to be open. But what is a heating stress? Heating stress occurs when we have an imbalance in transpiration. What is that? It does mean that the moisture that the tissues of your plant have, it's not enough. It's losing moisture to the environment faster than it's absorbing moisture through their roots. In the case, let's say it's extremely hot, we are not watering our plants as often as we can, so the roots not receiving all the moisture, or the environment, it's not as humid as it should be. We don't live inside a tropical forest, for example, so the leaves start to transpirate, to lose water through its leaves, which means all the tissues, and this water is not being replenished in time. We can get pretty dehydrated as well. I'll give you an example talking about the human body. If it's extremely hot and the sun all the time, we're not drinking plenty of fluids, we will lose water through our body fluids. It's the same thing that applies to your plant. In this case, your plant will become stressed. So let's talk about the common signs of stress in our plants, especially heat wave. I have a few examples here. Because I went to Germany for maybe 4 or 5 days, and my flat gets extremely hot. I live in the top floor, so some of my plants got stressed. I didn't lose any because it was only a few days, but if it was for a longer time without any water, I'd probably lose some of my plants. And I think some people probably have been going through the same thing, since now we have the hot waves and all the hot weather across Europe and everybody that lives in the northern hemisphere. So let's address some of these issues. So the first one that I'm going to address here is the yellowing of pseudobulbs and leaves. If you notice that the leaves are turning, instead of that dark, beautiful green, extremely yellow and pale, it means that the chlorophyll is deteriorating. You are offering too much light to your plant, and they can suffer because remember, chlorophyll is really important for your plant to photosynthesize. So if the chlorophyll is deteriorating, that means that's not photosynthesized properly, and ideally you should remove that from the spot that it is and place it somewhere where it's a little bit darker or shadier, not in a very dark position, but shadier than before. I'm giving you some examples here of some cattleyas. One of them, it's a seedling, was extremely yellow, and I noticed that it was becoming limpy and sad, so I moved its location. It's a very young plant, and with young plants we have to be very careful because they become stressed easily. The second one is still in the brightest location, because with some cattleyas I noticed, although I stress them a little bit, is the only position where they bloom for me. But with all of my other orchids, if I notice these yellowing happening, I immediately remove them from the location that they are and I place it somewhere else. Ideally, we should have a darker green. We don't want to have anemic plants. So that's the first sign that your plant can be stressed. The next one is withered leaves. So if you're offering too much heat, if you touch the leaves of your orchid, especially Phalaenopsis, some Oncidiums as well, if the leaves feel warm to the touch, you should remove them from that location and place in another place. You don't want to harm the leaves of your orchids. You don't want to burn them. And leaves are one of the very, very important parts of your orchids. They photosynthesize. They help the plant to grow. Without leaves, we don't have flowers and we don't have a healthy plant. So every time you see that they are very hot or warm to the touch, remove them from whenever they are placed and choose a cooler location. That's very important to keep your plant healthy as well. So let's go to the third thing. The next thing is sunburn. It's a very common topic covered in many different videos. If you notice that your plants are producing some sort of purple tint, that can be normal because they have some sort of protection to expose to the sunlight. They have chemical substance that will be produced when they are exposed to very high light that will have to protect them. If you notice that the leaves are changing colors, if they have freckles, all that, we need to be very careful and keep an eye on it. But again, check the temperature of the leaves, because if they are becoming very hot or warm to the touch, it could mean that they will probably be burned soon on that location. Sunburn is an advanced section. It's not only the freckles or the change in color, as the tissue completely brown, and as I said before, you lose that tissue. So sunburn is dangerous because from the moment that you lose the leaves, or if you lose the whole structure, it could be hard for you to even save your orchid. So before we sunburn it, when you notice signs that it's being exposed to extremely bright light, just keep an eye. I have some plants under growing light that they have this purple tint, they have some freckles. All good, you know that they won't be burned. But I do have leaves that are very close to my highest exposure southern and eastern windows, and I know that I have to keep an eye on them because I have direct sunlight behind me. So let's go to the next one. If you notice that you have shriveled pseudobulbs as well, if they become completely wrinkled, like as I said, I was away for a few days. It was very hot, so my oncidiums were all transpirating a lot, losing the water to the environment, and I was not replenished the water that they need. So the pseudobulbs become very wrinkled, shriveled. That's another sign of heat stress. So you have to keep an eye on all of the pseudobulbs to see if they are plumpy and healthy. If you stress them too much, they will definitely lose their water because they store water inside the pseudobulb, so the pseudobulb will shrink to give this water to the other structure that it needs. So that's one sign that it's pretty obvious and really good for you to keep an eye on them. And when we're talking about monopodia, look at the leaves. So if you look at your Phalaenopsis and the leaves is full of wrinkles, also your Vanda, and it's becoming leathery or very limp, these are also signs of heat stress. Could also be if you're not watering them as often as you should, if you went away. So these are signs that your plant may need some water. Obviously, if they are not healthy plants, they probably, or if they don't have roots, so that can be other issues. But if everything is okay, talking about the heating and how the heat can stress your plant, that's another sign that you should look for. And before I finish, the last sign, and that's why I have this beauty here, it's the flowers. If you know Phalaenopsis, they have very long last flowers, and these ones should be beautiful blooming, but because it took me a while to water it again, it becomes very stressed. So one of the signs that your plant is stressed, especially Phalaenopsis flowers, if you don't water them in time, if they become heat stressed, they will shed their flowers, will wither before it's their time to do so. That's another sign that your plant can be heat stressed. So in this case here, it lost all of these flowers. They are all dry now. Some of the buds are also blasting. That's another sign of heat stress. Now I've watered these plants, so everything should be okay. But that's another sign. And to let you know, if for any reason you go away, it happens to all of us, and you don't have time to water your plants and it's extremely hot, you may lose some flowers earlier than you thought. But that's normal because that's a mechanism for the plant to try to survive. the flowers needs the water, needs substance, it requires a lot from the plant, and if the plant is transpirating a lot, not receiving the water, it's going to be hard for this plant to maintain its flowers. So let me give you some tips what to do if you have a heat-stressed plant. If you note some of these signs, you need to correct the location. For example, as I said before, if the leaves are extremely warm to the touch, move it from the brightest spot to somewhere shadier. If you notice that the tissue it was burned, you can cut that part of the leaf, but there is nothing that you can do to recoup that, but change the location of the plant because you don't want to lose other section of your orchid. The same thing if your flowers are withering, are going away before you imagine, you cannot save these flowers, but you can definitely make your plant hydrated to have a better flowering next time. If you just arrive and notice, oh my gosh, my plants are all dry, the pseudobulbs are shriveled and all that, and we tend to think we should give these plants a lot of water, but actually you need to strike a balance, because if you give to this plant too much water, you may risk rotting the roots. So try to give it the right amount of water that you would give normally. The plant will absorb this water, and try not to skip watering next time. But don't overwater your plants, because then you can have two problems: the heat stress, then root rot. So it's going to be more difficult for your plant to bounce back than how it was before. Another thing important for you to do when we have hot weather is just keep an eye on the mix that your orchids are potted. Try to water them more often, because probably the mix will dry out quicker than when it's winter, autumn, or even spring. So keep an eye on the mix and try to water it more often. Try to leave all the windows open, provide some ventilation, some air movement. It will help your plant. If you have something to give more humidity to your plant, definitely do it. I don't. I usually try to strike with simple things, but don't mist your orchids. Apparently, it's according to the American Orchid Society, it's not proven to be efficient to give the leaves more humidity.
And also, it can rot the new bulbs, new growths. You can have crown rot, stem rot, so I wouldn't advise you to do so. The best thing is for you to water the plant every time it needs some water. Avoid overwatering or skipping watering, especially when it's very, very hot. And when it's a little bit cooler, you can definitely decrease the amount of water, and maybe you can spend more days without watering your plants. The main tip here is for you to observe and check your plants to see if they are doing well, and also when they need to be hydrated. That's what I want to tell you. I'm sorry about the voiceover, but something happened to the end of my video and I lost the conclusion. So I only want to let you know that it was really nice to record this video for you. I hope you have enjoyed too. If you did, hit the like button, leave a comment down below, and I hope to see you soon. Bye bye.